Right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How is everybody doing? All right, let's see who's joining. Say hello in the chat box, guys. If you're just joining, we're going to start in a little bit. We have about a minute to start. Welcome to this wonderful Meet the Miniaturist on Saturday. We have all these wonderful folks from the UK joining and the West Coast of the United States. The chat box is open. Hold on. Oh, yay, yay. Hello from the UK. Hi, Emma. Good to see you. Welcome, folks, if you're just joining. We are at the top of the hour. Here's Kingston, Jamaica. We were just talking about you. Hi, Mahira. Oh, my good. We are just talking about how, this is a global audience. We even get folks from Jamaica. Hello. Hi, Pat. Good to see you. We've got Canada. We've got Netherlands on the line. We've got Colorado. Hi, Carol. Great to see you. Richmond. Awesome. California. Thank you for getting up early. Let's see who else. The UK. Good to see you. Great. So before we start, let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. If you don't know who I am, I'm Darren Scala. I am the owner of D. Thomas Miniatures. I'm mostly a reseller. I have a wonderful estate sale happening right now. So you can check out the links that I put in the chat box. If you want to go ahead and check out that sale. But I also promote miniatures every chance I get to tell as many people about this wonderful world that we are so privileged to be a part of. So so check that out. Check my estate sale. Look for some of the things that I do around promoting, which is part of what I do is this Meet the Miniaturist series, but I also have a Miniversity series happening that's starting with DIYs, lectures, panel discussions, just all relating to this miniature world. So look for that as well. You might want to hold the date, Sunday, March 17th at 4 p.m. I'm going to be holding my next Miniversity course. Details to follow on that. But just do check out the links. And with that, I will say thank you to my guests today for joining on this Meet the Miniaturist on the road to the London Dollshouse Festival, which is happening in May. And we have very, very happily a whole bunch of artists who will be showing at the upcoming festival. But we also have Charlotte. Hi, Charlotte, who is the show promoter and who is responsible for all this wonderful stuff that's about to happen in May. So hi, Charlotte. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little about this wonderful show that's coming up?
Yes. Hello, Darren.
Yes.
I feel like we know each other, but we've never met.
I know.
But in May, we're going to meet.
That's
You're
right.
coming to London to the show, which is on the 17th and 18th of May. And it's actually our 40th anniversary year, which I've only just realized that the show started in 1985. So this is our 40th year. And I've been running the show for 20 years.
Oh,
so
it's a big anniversary for you, 20 years.
Really big anniversary for us. So we are kind of hoping to have some really fun things happening at the show. But I just thought I wanted to show you this, which I was sent in the post by the previous organizer, and it's a leaflet from 2004, so her last show. And I'm going to read out what I think these are the things that are still relevant that she wrote. She said, "What do you want? Renowned UK exhibitors, we have those. Exclusive overseas artisans, we have those. 98% items handcrafted. A balanced range of prices, inspiring displays, friendly staff, limited numbers, free cloakroom and parcels, free catalogue, and world-class refreshments." So I think that says it all. That's what our show's about. And that's pretty same now.
And that's great information for people who may have never been to a show before. You know, what can they expect when they get to that show? And what sets you apart from maybe some of the other shows that they can go to or choose to go to? Because, especially for those who might be traveling, what makes it worth it for them to actually make the trip? And so those are some of the things I think that do that.
Yeah, and I think we're very lucky that we have very loyal exhibitors, some of whom you'll be meeting. And many of those actually in the UK only will do our shows. So you're going to see different makers to makers you will see at other events in the UK and Europe and America. We have very different different exhibitors.
Yeah. Because you want to talk a little bit about what makes a really, really good exhibitor?
Oh. Um,
Well,
well, I think it has to be someone who is really passionate about what they do. So they may be specializing in a certain area of miniaturism,
yeah,
and they have to be very knowledgeable and passionate about their chosen area, and obviously very skilled at recreating um, what they love into miniature. So
yeah,
um, we always love it when they bring something new to the show. So we always encourage them to bring new items, as well as their sort of popular
yeah,
things they will be known for. And we're
yeah,
pushing them always to try new things and embrace new technologies to a certain extent as well, but not forget the skill of the traditional crafts.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, one of the big, like, I am doing this to, what I said to myself when I'm like, I'm going over, was the fact that I get to see artists that I might not get to see presenting in the United States, because I do go to the Chicago show, I go to the Philly show. So one of the things that's really a value for me, and I can't wait, is to meet up with some of these artists I've never met before, seen their work in person before. So this is very exciting for me. So and anybody else who's thinking about going to the London show, we wanted to hold this at this time because in case you're so inspired, now is the time to book your ticket.
Yeah, and we have around about 140 exhibitors,
Hmm.
and obviously most of them are the UK, but we have probably two-thirds UK, one-third rest of world coming to
Okay.
the. But they're always the UK artists, not all of them do travel to other shows abroad, so it is a really good opportunity to meet them and see their work if you
Right.
haven't had the chance to.
Yeah. And the rest of Europe too.
And the rest of Europe, of
Rest of
course, yeah.
Europe. So
And we've lots of Japanese exhibitors this year as well, which is exciting. We've
yeah.
got, I think, 8 different new Japanese exhibitors, which is quite a lot. We don't normally have that many. So
Yeah.
that,
Well, that's very exciting. That's
yeah,
very exciting for sure. Wow.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much. I hope you're going to hang around because we might
yeah, sure,
we
of
might get some
course.
questions in the chat box for you. So let's go to our first artist, Abby. Abby, unmute yourself, say hello, and introduce yourself. We've met on here before. I can't wait to meet you in person. Um,
Definitely.
Talk a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your work. Tell us what we can expect to see when we meet you in London.
Thanks, Darren. Well, yeah, I'm very excited to meet you. Yeah, we've only met virtually before, but so my name's Abby, and otherwise known as Tobacco and Regrets. That's the name of my business. Everybody always asks me why I got the name from, and basically it's all to do with my grandmother, her love of miniatures, and her love of chain smoking as well. So a lot of my miniatures are made to look distressed and real as possible, and like they're kind of tobacco stained, like they've really been lived in. Really, that's my go-to.
Hold on, I want to go
um
ahead and start this. Go ahead, Chris. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so basically every time I do a show, I try to challenge myself a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the pieces that you're seeing right now, that was one of my very first pieces that I sort of released when I started out as Tobacco and Regrets. And I look at the making now and I see it so fondly, but I've come on
Yeah.
so far
Yeah.
in making, and it's a lot of that is to do with being at the shows and
Right.
being able to meet customers but also other artisans, and it just really pushes you to up your game.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, it's amazing. This my favorite times of the year are the shows.
Yeah. I mean, I actually just, looking through your Instagram, getting ready for this, I could see that you've had this journey. So
Yeah,
talk a little bit about that, where you started and where you're at now, and and talk about like that whole idea about doing shows, how that has influenced your work, because you talk a little bit about how you like to do things that are different, that's not out there.
exactly. Yeah, I like to create miniatures that I would want, and usually those are things that you generally can't find in the mass-produced sort of miniature realm. So it could be anything from an old worn suitcase. It could be even like oh, I don't know, like a bottle of whiskey and a cigar on a table, things like that. Okay, they sound quite common, but the way I make them is every piece has to look like it has a story, like someone has actually touched it, lived with it. It's all about realism, and also evoking memories in people. I think this piece that you're seeing now, I made, and I don't know how many people have said to me, my nan had that cooker, she had that stove, and it brings back those fond memories, which I love. I love that when people say that.
Yeah. So where's your process? Where does it start? Do you have an image in your head first, or a memory, and then it translates to the miniature, or the story first? Like what's your process?
Usually I'll have an image in my head. Sometimes it does start with a story. So sometimes I'll have something maybe is going on and I'll have a bit of social commentary on it that I want to put across visually. Other times I just see something, see objects, fall in love with them, look at the patina of them, look at how they've been used, even like an old like sofa or armchair. Okay, it's a sofa or armchair, but then when you can see the groove of where someone has been sitting in it for years, you know, it kind of makes it really rich, and again, it evokes that sort of story. So anything like that can spark my imagination. I've got Pinterest boards and photos. You should see my camera roll on my phone. It's ridiculous. So I've had to upgrade the storage just because of all my reference photos.
So what are some of the things that you might be working on that we'll see at the show?
So at the moment, I've set myself a challenge this year. There are two things that I really wanted to improve on. That was upholstery. So I'm going to have a lot more sort of finer upholstered items, but then with my level of grunge and dirt and realism. And then also I have set myself the challenge to try and make paper look like metal.
Oh, interesting.
So making lots of tins and cans and old biscuit tins and things like that. And I'm working out a technique at the moment to create them out of paper, and it's going okay. So I will have some of those to show in May. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope you can stay around in case we have any questions at the end. But with that, thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's talk to Lara Byng from Lara Byng Fine Art Miniatures. I think you're unmuted. Hi, Lara. Good to see you. Thank you for joining again. What's that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can totally hear you. So tell us a little bit about, now you have an art background. This is your thing. You have a family is very invested in art, and you've had a lot of support growing up through art. You've traveled and spent time in galleries, and now you're making miniatures. So talk a little bit about how you got there.
Yeah, well, ever since I was a child, my mum always encouraged me to paint. It was like, nope, you're not watching the TV. You're going to sit there and paint. So, I would always ask my mum, can you draw me a picture of a princess or a lady in a fancy gown, and then I would colour it in, and then gradually I would start to draw them and paint them. And she just really encouraged me, and then took me around galleries when I was little, and I was just like looking up at these masterpieces just in total awe. Absolutely.
So you were at one point creating in full scale, is that right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was I've got one behind me, which was one of my very first paintings I ever did when I was 17 in art college. And we went to the Royal Armouries in Leeds, and we were supposed to come back with ideas to create a painting. And I'd never oil painted before. I'd never tried it. And so I took away there was a horse's neck armour and all the armour on it. So I came back and I'd taken a photograph of it, and I was like, right, looking at the masters, they always painted armour brilliantly. So I was like, I'm going to paint the horse's neck armour. And I absolutely, it's just love it. And I didn't get into art college in Leeds because of my because I was so stuck on my love of the old masters. They were like, you need to think modern, but I was like,
Yeah.
and so they actually invited me to come back for a second interview, like, try and be a bit more modern.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges moving from, let's say, full scale to small scale? I mean, it can't be easier. It's not easier just because it's smaller. I would think it's even more difficult.
I think it's, for me, I often left a lot of large paintings unfinished, like really large paintings, a lot of them unfinished because I was so obsessed with the detail that it would drive me insane. And I would, once I'd done one bit and then I'd be like, no, that's not quite right. So then I oftentimes didn't finish them. So the miniature scale is actually less overwhelming for me.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I actually find it, I love it when I've completed one. I'm like, oh, I've completed one.
Yeah. So now you take on, you do commissions, but do you also paint, like, are there things that you want to do yourself? Like, how does that work for yourself?
Well, I have two very different styles of art. I have my dark willow art side of things, which I keep sort of separate from the old masters, which is nature inspired, and it's all from my imagination with a hint of magic in there.
Yeah.
Lots of animals and things like that. And that's really for me because I'm very connected to nature, and so I'm very in tune with it, and it's like my peace and my therapy is like painting very serene scenes.
Yeah.
But the masters, it's like that's just a challenge.
Yeah.
You know,
I bet.
an appreciation for the stories that these paintings often tell.
Yeah. So what can folks expect to see at your table in London?
I just focus mainly on the old masters, so I have I'll probably have about 20 or 30 miniatures, and then I also do some dark willow stuff as well, like little miniature framed prints. So I have a bit of both, but predominantly the old masters.
And how long have you been doing the show for? This is not new for you.
I've been doing it 2 or 3 years. Doing the old masters. But I did the miniatures for dark willow for about 6 years. But these ones a couple of years doing the dolls' houses. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're familiar with the shows and how they work. Have you ever done a US show?
No, but I'd like to.
We got to see you over here.
I used to live in America, but that's a long
story. All right. Well, if any, I would say start with Chicago. It's probably the best show in the United States. So yeah, do Chicago if you're going to. And we would love to see you and love to see your work here. So thank you for taking us through that for sure. Let's, and stay around, please, if you can, in case we get any questions. Let us chat with Isla. Isla, how are you? Where is she? We got to unmute her. Hi. Bissbolissian.
Yes, that's the one. Thank you.
Yay! Tell us about yourself. Now, you lived in Canada, I believe, for a short time, but you grew up in London.
So I was born in Canada.
Born in Canada.
My dad was living there, but my mum is from London. So so we moved back to London when I was quite small, and I grew up there.
Nice, very nice.
Going to the Kensington Dollshouse Fair.
So tell us, your work is wonderful, by the way. How would you characterize your work? It's not traditional dollhouse. What would you talk a little bit about your work and how you got there?
So I would say that my work is most understandable if you come at it from the point of view of having read The Borrowers. Which is why I'm called the Borrow Isle. And it's basically about the whimsy involved in thinking, if someone were to live in this camera or this till or this clarinet, who would that be, and what would their life be like, and what would they have, and what would they, what would it be like? So it's that sort of whimsy that I like to use to create my work.
Yeah, yeah, definitely very whimsical, very artistic. These are standard pieces. They're standalone pieces. Yeah, is
Yeah,
how I
pretty
would
much
describe
so.
them.
Some of them can interact. So, for instance, this one is a football changing room, traditional to like a Sunday league, full of mud and mess. But then I also have an ice skating boot, which is very much a more sort of she sort of gym, where it's a ladies' changing room. It's much cleaner. There's hair dryers. So the two of them sort of work quite well as a pair. But yeah, each piece is designed on its own individually.
Yeah, and storytelling is a huge part of what you do. Talk a little bit about that. Oh my goodness, that's loud. Sorry.
Yes, I just think that it's so nice to have a narrative in something. It sets a starting point for your own imagination when you're thinking about it. I really love the beauty of a well-made miniature, but you begin to start thinking of, the little world that this belongs to, and then that's where my narratives would come from.
And so where do your ideas come from? How do they get to you? How do you decide what the next piece that you're going to work on?
So normally the object would come first, and I'll see something in a junk shop or a charity shop or a fair, and I'll just think, oh, look at the hole in that. I could put something in there.
Yeah.
And then I sort of jump off from there. Occasionally, people will come to me and they'll say, oh, I'd really love something that involves, that feeling of going on holiday and, being away. And then I'll think, okay, so what would really encapsulate that? And then that's where you end up with a pocket watch, and you put a beach scene inside the pocket watch. Right. So that I can come at it from both directions.
Yeah, and you also have a very strong point of view about the materials you used, about reclaimed pieces and ecology, and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, okay. So this started from I live with my husband, and he has certain views on what our interior design should look like. One of the things that he's willing to have in the living room are vintage cameras, because he's a photographer. But he's not willing to have all my little miniatures in there. So I thought, if I put the miniature in the vintage camera, he won't say no.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it's a really beautiful thing. From across the room, you just see this lovely object. It really fits in with our home setting. You get up close, you see the little miniature magical world, and we get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it makes everybody happy. That's pretty wonderful.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It works for the way we live. And then, so that was a number of the jumping off for the kind of objects that I choose. I want to choose something that's really beautiful that you would want to have on your shelf, that you would have out anyways. That's why I choose violins or the vintage cameras. Yeah. And then I don't want to ruin something. Mm-hmm. So I like to choose something which is already past its use. Mm-hmm. So I'm not breaking something. I'm reviving it. I'm keeping it out of landfill and giving it a new lease of life. I like to use traditional materials, many things which are reused. So it's a really sort of low footprint. So I can feel absolutely no guilt about my hobby whatsoever.
Yeah, no, and I didn't share any pictures of your work inside musical instruments. I think they're fabulous, just wonderful. So what are some of the things we're going to see?
Well, funny you should mention musical instruments. I found this old clarinet.
Yes.
And I don't know if it'll be able to come over on the screen very well for you, but this will end up being for probably Rapunzel or a combination of different fairy tales with maybe Rumpelstiltskin at the bottom with a spinning wheel, and then moving up to maybe Cinderella, and then Rapunzel at the very top at the highest point.
I love that. I love it. Yeah. Beautiful. And I just love the way you're bridging the the gap between traditional dollhouse and fine art assemblage. I don't know. Is that another way to say it, maybe?
Yeah, I have shown in some galleries, and I think that dolls' houses are wonderful, but they are big things, and it's hard to find the space. And with smaller things, you can have more.
Yeah, you can have more. I love that. Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. Let us talk to Beth. How are you, Beth? Now, I did get to meet you, Beth.
Hi.
So I'm going to get to see you again. We met in Castine. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you, because there's a separation of you as the artist, and there's also the business that you own. So talk about those two things, because you run Elf Miniatures, the very, very world famous Elf. So tell us about that. And then I also want to hear a little bit about Harrods. I have some images of that folks are going to see. So yeah, say hello.
Hi, yeah, so I'm Beth, and I do run Elf Miniatures now. I took over from Liz Leplat, who ran Elf Miniatures for over 25 years. And she decided one day that she wanted to retire and go on to her next adventure, which she has gone on to very, very successfully. And at the time when she was doing her sort of semi-retirement, she actually put it out there that she was thinking about retiring completely. And I approached her and asked her if she was looking for someone to take over. And so we entered into a conversation, and the rest is history. So yeah, so it's been about I think just over 2 years, maybe coming up for 3. It's 2.5 maybe.
So now, do you go over as are you presenting as Elf or your own miniatures? How is that working?
So yeah, it's a little bit complicated. So I took over Elf, and obviously everybody knows Elf. They've been around for a long time. Liz trained me, so I actually, because Liz lived very close to me, she lived half an hour away from me, so I was very lucky. I was able to go up and train. She trained me for over 3 months, and I was going all the time. And basically, once I was trained, I took over the business, and at that point I wasn't sure what to do, because obviously everyone knows Elf, and I thought, well, I don't want to lose the name, and I'm doing the same things. I'm bringing Elf back into the market fully, because she sort of, as on her semi-retirement, she reduced down her offering. So I've kept the name, and I'm running it as a business, but I still have my original business, which is my Miniature Maison, which I started back in 2018. That was on Etsy.
Yeah.
So I started my Miniature Maison on Etsy in 2018. I actually did my first Kensington show in 2018 as well, as my Miniature Maison. So now I've got them both going at the same time, and I still haven't decided what I'm going to do, whether I'm going to forego one of the names, or we'll see. But yeah, Elf has taken over quite a lot, really, because I'm still doing everything that Liz did, and I just love it. So
well, you're hitting it just at the right time. I mean, miniatures is having its moment, I think, in a big way, no pun intended. But I think what's driving that is this whole aesthetic, this whole vibe of modern contemporary miniatures, and I think you're doing it with your work. So I think you're perfectly timed, and your work is wonderful. So
thank you. That's what we're all about, really. We're about modern miniatures. So I felt that there was a bit of a gap in the market for my own, because I'm a collector as well. I'm absolutely passionate about miniatures and have been since I was a child. And but for me, it was all about the modern. And I didn't want to go down the route of like the sort of 1970s, 80s modern. I wanted really contemporary stuff. And so that's where I started myself with my Miniature Maison. It was kind of like seeing things in magazines, and I was like, I want that for my doll's house. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to try and make it myself. And that's how I started. Yeah.
So I have your work with Harrods up. I'm going to just stop it because it's just so fabulous. So you want to talk a little bit about this and how this collab came about, and what are we looking at?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I was approached by an agency that deals with making window displays. Actually, that's their main business. And they approached me and said that they had a client in America who I can say the name. It's Tom Brown, and basically Tom Brown is a designer, an American clothing designer, and he has a very particular aesthetic in his shops. He actually uses mid-century modern pieces that he finds and buys to populate, you know, all of his boutiques, and they're all original items. And so they approached me and said, we want to do, or Tom Brown's doing, you know, 4 windows in Harrods, and he wants the furniture, but he wants it in miniature. So
Yeah.
So that was the brief, and I had 3 weeks from start to finish to make an enormous amount of items.
Nothing like a deadline.
Yeah, and so they sent me a load of schematics, and I had to work to scale, and it was extremely difficult. I was doing sort of 18-hour days, really.
Oh, I bet.
But yeah, no, it was very challenging, but I enjoyed it a lot, and it really pushed me as well.
I'm struck at that he wanted miniature. That was his kind of vision, right? Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. He basically wanted, they gave me inspiration pictures of real life items that he actually owned that are in his boutiques, and actually in the Harrods boutique inside you can actually see some of the pieces that I replicated as well. So it was actually really fascinating. When I went there, I actually saw the real life items that I've made in miniature. So that was actually really interesting as well.
That's awesome.
But they did. He just had this vision, and they put it together, and that's what they wanted. So
yeah, and there was a wonderful like 1-minute ad, or I don't know what it was, a promotional piece, which you know, I encourage folks to go look at Beth's Instagram. It's there. I tried to pull it up, but I couldn't. But yeah, it's a really nice piece, and it shows off your miniatures. Not of course, not as much as we want. I just would have liked to have been all about the miniature.
Yeah.
So do you want to share anything about of what you're bringing to the show?
Well, yes, I'm hoping to, exciting breaking news now, I'm hoping to bring back some 1/24th scale pieces that Liz used to do, and she stopped doing when she went semi-retired, and so I'm basically I'm redesigning some of the pieces, and I'm hoping to bring kits back for people so they can buy kits and make their own 1/24th scale kitchens.
Wow.
And you know, maybe some other items like fridges and things like that. I actually have a little baby one here that's a prototype. It is, like he said, things don't show too well on camera, but we're hoping we can see. We have a little shaker kitchen there with little underslung sink, and and you know, some nice tiling as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's one of the things that I'm planning, and I've always got thousands of ideas in my head. I literally do not sleep. I've got so many things going on, so there'll be millions of new things. No, I'm not going to set myself up for a fall. No, but no, there'll be new stuff.
Well, I look forward to seeing you in London. Thank you for joining. I hope you can stick around for a little while longer.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. All right, let's talk to Craig. Craig, how are you? Craig, you know,
Hi.
when Craig first started, and how blown away I was from like the get-go. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is good. So welcome. I've had you on before. I'm glad to have you back, and I'm happy to hear that you're heading to London for like the first time, so we can spread the word. Yeah.
Yes. I have been to Kensington as a visitor before, but this is my first time showing, and I'm very, very excited. I love this show so much. And I wanted to go for years before I went the first time, and I think it is such a unique show, and it's London. It's just so wonderful.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about your work, because you are, I would say, the fine traditional miniaturist. Would you say? I mean, classic, you know, working with all, you know, hardwoods, materials, you know, working from scratch. Talk a little bit about being that traditional miniaturist?
Yeah, so I focus very much on highly detailed, handcrafted furniture and interiors, and room boxes and accessories. And so I work with wood and metal. I'm also, I do painting, but I'm not a traditional painter. I was trained as a set painter. When I was in college, I was a set design major. So I sort of learned my painting through that way. But I have been focused mostly in the last few years on 18th and 19th century American furniture. And I focus very much on the details of things and how things are actually constructed. And so the drawers have dovetails. Everything has mortise and tenon joinery. And I also like to use old wood when I can, as much as possible. That's my puppy. He's not a puppy anymore. But yeah, I think that I get as highly detailed as I can, and I think that I have because I'm working with wood and metal. I do custom hardware, and I get a little bit sometimes too caught up in the details, I think. But and I also tend to like to make things look as real as possible. I know it seems like a lot of people on this call have been talking about that. Abby was talking about that, but I also like a piece of furniture to have life to it. I'm not making an 18th piece of furniture that is brand new, generally speaking. It's an antique, and so that's what I'm actually replicating. And I try to get as close to the feeling of that original piece as I can.
So there's a whole finishing process. Not only are you building it, you're finishing it to a certain way.
Yes, very much so. A lot of my furniture is painted furniture. That's just, I'm very attracted to that myself. But the furniture that is not painted, I'm using dyes and shellacs. I usually hand mix my shellac with shellac flakes, which is a really interesting process. But yeah, I'm very much interested in the finish as well. It's a big part of what I do.
So you become an IGMA artisan, which is awesome. Congratulations. And
Thank
you're
you.
also now teaching. So you're spreading the word and translating and transferring this knowledge, which is so wonderful. How are you finding the teaching part?
I love the teaching part. It is amazing, actually. It is so inspiring. I've taught twice at Williamsburg now. That picture that's on the screen there now is the project from Williamsburg, and Guild School last summer, and then I'll be teaching again at Guild School this coming summer. And I love it. I think the people that are in this community, in the Guild, that attend school they're so passionate, and I am so passionate about this.
Yeah.
It's what I love to do, and it's an amazing experience at these Guild programs to be able to come together with people that love this stuff as much as I do. So it's really wonderful. It is also a tremendous amount of work to teach. I can't even tell you. And I go all out for my classes. So teaching so many classes in the last year has taken time away from me making new things, which this Kensington show, and also Chicago, I'm going to Chicago in April, has been kind of a wonderful break because I'm making new stuff that I can just focus on that.
Would you mind just talking a little bit about that? Because I don't think people have an awareness of what goes into teaching a class and how much work goes into that.
Well, so for me, I'm not dumbing down any of the things that I'm making in these classes. So I'm not simplifying any process. The one thing I would say that I might try to simplify is that the way that we're making things on the tools, I have a pretty elaborate jigging system that I've been using in class, and make many, many jigs that...
Oh no, we're freezing up.
Students make to some degree. If I know that I'm going to be making something over and over again, I will make a jig so that it's easier for me to set up the next time. But for classes, I do that to a greater degree. But I spend months and months preparing, researching, drafting, milling the wood. Last summer we had, it was a chest on chest that had 9 drawers. And I used reclaimed cedar from the Pacific Northwest for the drawer material, and I milled all that wood for all of those 9 drawers for 10 students plus some prototypes. So it was a lot of time just even milling the wood and getting that ready to go for class. So it's a pretty intensive process.
It is. And then just mapping out how you're going to teach. I would imagine that's one of the greatest challenges, mapping that out.
Yes, because in a class like that, you can't do things sequentially necessarily, because there's 10 different, my classes tend to have 10 people so far. And we have a limited number of machines, even at Guild School where they have many machines, but still. So not everybody can do the same thing at one time. And so you can't make a piece from one step to another. So you have to be able to balance the process and the chaos a little bit.
And that's my point. Appreciate your teachers, guys, because they put a lot into it before they get to that class. But that's so awesome. All right. So what are you mentioned some of the work that you're doing. What are we going to expect to see in London?
So I have been wanting to go to London for a long time, like I said, and I first talked to Charlotte seriously about it to go last year, but I didn't make it because I'd had surgery on my ankle. But so I've been researching for a long time, and like I said, I've been focused in my work generally on American furniture, but for Kensington, I'm looking at British furniture.
Interesting.
Everything that I'm going to be bringing, with the exception of one chair, is from Great Britain. So there's some cabinets, and I have some things that are sort of in process that I can show. But so some British furniture. I'm going to make some early 20th century English toys that are going to be included as well. So yeah.
So what was some of the surprises going from doing American furniture to British furniture? Like, what did you not expect, or what are you loving about British
interesting little details well, American furniture that from that period that I work in a lot is very influenced by English furniture already, because a lot of those cabinet makers came over from England. So there are similarities in construction, but materials are different. And there are also some design changes that are sort of interesting. There's a particularly, I believe, from what I've been researching, English cupboard design where the upper shelves of a cupboard are graduated. They're not all the same depth. So the top shelf is full depth, and then they get shallower and shallower as they go down. I assume so that when someone was reaching up, they could get stuff easier off the lower shelves, and then the higher shelves they had to work harder. I'm not sure, but that's an interesting little quirk. And I've been doing. I'm going to show you in a second. There's a Welsh food cupboard that I'm working on, and Wales, I think, has some very unique furniture that seems to be very specific to Wales. And I have loved that. And it's similar in, generally speaking, in construction, but the design is a little bit different and unique. So
awesome. Yeah. Were you going to share that?
I will. Yeah. So let me flip the camera around. Okay. So, let me start first here. So, these are, I'm closer to the camera. I hope I'm not too loud. These are Irish cupboards / pot boards. And so they will have glass doors up above and wooden doors and drawers below. And there's a picture on the wall. It ends up being painted green. It's that one that's a green cupboard there. And so those are made out of, the original was made out of pine. And I'm using reclaimed Pacific Northwest fir, Douglas fir, and a little bit of cedar and just a little bit of pear for those. Because the wood is old, and I want it to look old. And the wood and this reclaimed fir is just beautiful wood. The grain is wonderful, really nice and tight. And also on this tray, there's the chair that I know Charlotte has shown this on her account, but this chair was one that I did for my artist submission with the Guild, and I'm making a few of those to bring to Kensington as well. Super intense project, that chair. There's 30 some jigs just to make the basic structure of the chair. And the caning on the seat is hand woven out of thread. It's a very intense process. And there's a lot of pictures of that on my Instagram as well, if you want to get a closer look at that. And then over here, this is the cupboard that I was talking about from Wales. So the original is this, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's the black cupboard that's on the wall there.
Yeah.
And it's from Snowdonia, I believe. I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly. But it's a food storage cupboard. So glass doors up above, wooden doors below. And this I think is really interesting. The key escutcheons are bone.
Wow.
And bone inlays, which also I seem to see in Welsh furniture a lot. So that I'm kind of excited about. We'll see how that goes.
I can't wait to see those in person. That's going to be awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That is great. Craig, thank you so much. The rest of you guys, thank you so much. Do we have any questions from the chat box for any of our wonderful artists and Charlotte, who's running the show, before we wrap up and let you guys go and have your night in the UK and our day here and Craig's rest of the day before we wrap this up? But this has been just wonderful. Thank you so much, you guys. I can't wait to see all of you again, those of who I've not met, and those who I have met. So thank you guys. We can't wait to come to London. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you so much. All right, bye.